Alaikum, welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for watching us on channel 347 from our Cape Town studios or on our live stream www.hilal.tv. So we all know the conflict that's been happening in the Middle East right now. That's taking center stage. So since the 7th of October, it's escalated, but that's been going on for years. We all know that as well. On Hilaal TV, we try and cover topics and educate our viewers with regards to the conflict, but more importantly, to the humanitarian need that is out there as well. Two brothers that recently visited the Middle East as well. In studio, I'd like to welcome first Dr. Yusuf Patel. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thanks for joining us in studio. My absolute pleasure. And then Qari Nadeem Dawood. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Jazakallah for joining me in studio, gentlemen. So give us some context. You ventured out to the Middle East, more importantly towards Jordan and Al-Aqsa. Give us some context in terms of the history of the trip. How did this trip come together?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So basically, in a nutshell, we intended to visit Jordan, to visit a few scholars there. And in the discussion of putting all our logistics together, my dear brother Qari Nadeem asked me what the possibility would be of trying to go to Jerusalem. Now, obviously, as you mentioned a bit earlier, that we're all aware of the conflict, or rather the genocide in Gaza and in Palestine as a location. And we thought that trying to go to Jerusalem and to be at the Baitul Maqdis compound would perhaps be the closest that we could be to the Palestinians, to show our support and to show our solidarity, but more importantly to find out from the locals, the local Palestinians in Jerusalem and in the surrounding areas, what more can we do with regards to this genocide and this conflict. Alhamdulillah, we know that South Africans and particularly Cape Townians are very active with regards to the resistance and showing support and solidarity, whether that be through boycotting, marches, and media exercises. But we thought if we could get in, we would be able to have first-hand experience and knowledge directly from the Palestinians with regards to what more we could do, what more we can do. So alhamdulillah, that was essentially I think the context of us visiting Jerusalem. And my brother Qari Nadeem will go into a bit more of the details and the logistics. It's suffice for me to say that it was a trip that we felt had no precedent, because at the time when we decided, I don't think any Cape Townians were in the area, were in Jerusalem. Perhaps maybe 1-2 South Africans went a week prior, but no one really advertised or mentioned. So we were not sure what the possibilities were. But alhamdulillah, we were able to get in and able to fulfill our objectives.
I get you as well, because I recently came back from Cairo as well, and most of the humanitarian organizations were hoping for the Rafah border to be open to send humanitarian aid. And I think the logistics around the trucks, the food parcels, the water, whatever that was needed, I think they had more access via the Egyptian side rather than Jerusalem side as well. But we'll cover that very shortly as well. Qari Nadeem, it's obviously when you embark on a trip like this, one of two things is that you're driven by emotion and you're driven by humanitarian aid, need, desire to provide for someone that's in desperate need.
100%.
What was your emotions like knowing that you were going to venture on this trip?
Subhanallah, I think you basically encapsulated it beautifully there in terms of the state that we found ourselves in, the hal, as the scholars would say, one understanding the landscape of, the land, the war, the political unrest, etc. Yet the conflicting desire within ourselves to want to be there with our Muslim brothers in some way. And I think the hearts of the Muslims globally are aligned, with the Palestinians, whom are the representation of what strength is, of what togetherness is, of what resolution really is in the face of fighting adversity, in the face of fighting the enemies of Islam. And as we know the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, wherein he said, Al-mu'minuna ka jasadin wahid ishtaka aynu ishtaka kullu. You know, the entire Muslim world, or the Muslim ummah, is like one body. You know, if one's eye has to pain, you basically feel the affliction throughout the entire body. So we felt for them, and we wanted to see how best and how possible it would be to get there. And alhamdulillah, you know, with tawakkul in Allah and with effort as well, of us having to go from Jordan to the Allenby King Hussein border, go through the necessary protocols, and as my esteemed learned brother Maulana Yusuf Patel had said, there was no precedent before, because we had no other previous South Africans or anyone, quite frankly, from other parts of the world to get any reference from. But we had obviously ensured, obviously having traveled in the past before, one needs to make sure that arrangements are in place, and this plays the best of intention to go in peacefully and to achieve what we want to achieve, which was our presence there in Palestine, to be present in the great and the sacred space of Al-Bayt al-Maqdis, Masjid al-Aqsa, the 7 mosques of the Al-Aqsa compound. And after a process of necessary questioning and interviews, etc., we were allowed in. It was a feeling of satisfaction and relief once we had reached the hotel in Jerusalem, you know, where the Bayt al-Maqdis compound is just about a kilometer's walk from. And it felt, you know, subhanallah, it was special for us to be able to be on the sacred land, the sacred space, you know, where so many of the moment. Most definitely for myself, it was my first trip, and to be, you know, to tread the same land that so many of Allah's prophets had tread, you know, and a land that has a history of over 5,000 years. You know, the Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, you know, who once ruled his kingdom from thereafter his son Sulaiman alayhi salam, where the prophets, all 124,000 of them, had gathered on the Bayt al-Maqdis compound on the night of Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. Subhanallah, it was very special indeed, and to witness firsthand. Of course, we could not get into Gaza, but in Jerusalem, at least, where you are surrounded by, at all entry points to the Al-Aqsa compound, the IDF soldiers that are stationed there, to be able to meet the local people, to see what their life is all about. These people have been the representation of what human greatness is all about.
I agree.
And to look at them, and, you know, sometimes because of the helplessness that we feel within ourselves, we tend to look at them as sort of being surreal human beings. But when you are there with them and you can see them in the flesh, then you understand that they too are ordinary human beings like us. They also have family structures,
I agree,
you know, of parents and children. They too need to eat, and need to you know, attend to the other tasks that we need to. Of course.
You know, it's one of those things. We see a lot of videos, we see a lot of footage on social media, we see the strife of the Palestinian brothers and sisters, but speaking to someone in person and witnessing their pain coming through their eyes or their body, that's another surreal moment as well. And I think it just encompasses the entire ummah that's trying to assist as well, but really encompassing that moment of why we need to assist. You know, when you got to Jerusalem, what was the plan? I mean, how long were you there, and what was your intention for the time that you were there, Dr. Yusuf?
So, as I mentioned earlier, our intention really was just to spend time in the Bayt al-Maqdis compound and to spend time with the locals. One of the things that we observed, one of our observations immediately when we entered into the Aqsa compound, was that the local Palestinians, the youth, middle-aged men and women, were not allowed to pray. So essentially you had just a few seniors in the compound itself. As Qari Nadeem mentioned, the Aqsa compound is not what we assume it to be generally. I think there's a misunderstanding. You know, when you speak of Masjid al-Quds or we speak of Dome of the Rock, we assume that that's Masjid al-Aqsa, but Masjid al-Aqsa is the actual area, the Baytul Maqdis compound area, and that compromises of about 7 mosques on site.
Okay.
So when we went in, we essentially saw perhaps about one saf of seniors praying for every salah. And that was obviously very concerning for us, because that, I think, showed and indicated that the Zionist occupational forces are restricting Palestinians into the compound. The area can basically take about 70,000 plus minus, right? Okay. That's the whole area. And in the past, in the month of Ramadan and on all the sacred days within the Islamic calendar, and for various events, the compound is completely filled with musallis and Muslims. But now, the numbers were extremely sparse. And when we spoke to the ulama of the compound, and we spoke to the seniors, they mentioned to us that this is obviously a tactic and a ploy of the Zionist occupational forces in terms of restricting the youth and restricting anyone under the age of 65. Now, us being foreigners, and in our assumption that the Zionist forces were trying to save some face, they allowed us in, right? Because we obviously showed that we are South Africans, that we are tourists, in inverted commas. So they did not have a problem with us entering for the various periods or times of Salah. But they did ask us for our passports and, to see that we had a valid visa. But on multiple occasions, we were mistaken from a distance to be locals. And so therefore, at those points or those periods of time, we were subjected to, some unbecoming behavior, if I could use that term, of the Zionist forces. And at the same time, we would see Palestinian youth, men and women, trying to get in as well. And on all occasions, they were turned away and treated, with disdain and rudeness from the forces.
Shocking.
And so that showed us, what tactics the Zionist forces are using. When we asked the local Palestinians, the youth and individuals, that they're going to turn you away. Why do you still go? Why do you still try? And their response was very simple. And I think this gave us some, confidence and sort of lifted our spirits. They said that we know we won't get in, but we want to place some pressure on them that they have to work hard if they're going to resist or keep us out.
Brilliant. I'm chatting to Dr. Yusuf Patel and Qari Nadeem Dawood around their recent trip to the Middle East and more importantly through Jerusalem, trying to get into Gaza to try and assist our brothers and sisters that's going through so much right now. We're going to take a short ad break. When we come back, we continue this conversation. You're welcome to join us on the WhatsApp line 079-085-2511. Let us know your thoughts about this wonderful trip that they've just embarked on. You are still watching Hilaal Live. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. Thanks for watching us on channel 347 and on our live stream www.hilaal.tv. We're chatting to two brothers, Dr. Yusuf Patel and Qari Nadeem Dawood, who's just been to the Middle East via Jerusalem, trying to get into Gaza or also just find out about the need and as South Africans, how we can assist our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Brothers, Jazakallah so much for coming into the studio, joining us as well. Must have been, before the break, we chatted about what a surreal experience this is, being right there in Masjid al-Aqsa as well. But we follow very, specific traditions in South Africa. Whether you grew up in Durban, Johannesburg, Cape Town, it's still very traditional. Do you find that some of those traditions are still practiced in Al-Aqsa, or do you find that it's changed? Was it very different to what we experience in South Africa, Qari?
I think, look, on the base level, the fact that we are all Muslims is something that unites us. Cape Town is basically an area with a huge kaleidoscope of cultures, all clashing and coming together. And when you're there, you witness. I mean, these are people that whose legacy and lineage goes back, hundreds and perhaps over 1,000 years, and are divinely linked to the Anbiya and the great prophets of Islam. So one could look towards them and say that perhaps they are along a purer form of practice. Look, Islam is you would not find, I mean, Cape Town, if that is the question, not to deviate from the actual, given the brevity of time that we have, there are differences, you know, in terms of the big nights that we would commemorate here, the Mawlud practices, the Khadat practices as they're commonly called. There's no Buba on the 15th night of Ramadan in Masjid al-Aqsa, if that is the question. But yes, we share in terms of the fundamentals of Islam that we need to practice. If I could be allowed, just given the brevity of time, you know, the message from Masjid al-Aqsa to the South African people and the Muslim Ummah at large was that Masjid al-Aqsa does not belong to the Palestinians, al-Bayt al-Maqdis. It is the third sacred haram of Islam, you know, that belongs to the entire Muslim world. And the responsibility, you know, as you'd mentioned, rightfully mentioned earlier, on each one of us, and not just, you know, on those that are fortunate to be able to go, or those that have been in the past, or those that are intending to go, of course. And this is, you know, if you are by the means, to please try and make every attempt to go and show your presence there, because whilst the locals are prevented from going if you're under the age of 55 or 60 years old, those from other parts of the world are not. You know, show your presence. You know, we met with, on the day of our departure, one of the previous imams, Sheikh, I think his name was Sheikh Ali Al-Abbasi. And he said, take the message to your brothers and sisters in South Africa and around the world and ask them to come, because we have understood and we have lost hope in the rest of the Arab world coming to the defense of Islam and coming to the defense of Masjid al-Aqsa. But rather we have reached the time, perhaps as was foretold by the Prophet ﷺ, that those who will defend the cause of Islam will be the non-Arabs. So tell them that they must come in their numbers as they always have been, and not to be distracted and let what is happening in Gaza prevent them from coming. Of course, there ought not to be any risk to yourselves. Sure. You know, you're given a visa on arrival, and you're therefore a lawful entrant or lawful tourist. So keep that on you at all times. You know, it's a blue slip coupon that you keep in your passport. Keep that on you, and let us also remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, reported by Abdullah ibn Umar, when he said, when the Prophet said to the ashab, you know, that each one of you should try and go and pray in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. When the companions asked the Prophet, tell us what is the injunction or the legal injunction of Masjid Al-Aqsa in Islamic tradition to our deen, and he said that you should try and go and pray there. And the companions asked him, what if we were unable to do so? And then he said, try and send provisions, even if it is some oil. And so we must understand the responsibility and the civic duty that exists upon each one of us as Muslims. You know, we often see this time of year, many people are going for Umrah, and we don't discredit that, and we know the significance of being in the Haram of Makkah as well as the Prophet's Mosque. But Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa is also a third haram in Islam, and an equal sibling by birthright, if we could refer to it in that way. And I believe that if the other two harams were able to speak, they would say at this point in time, our brother in Jerusalem, in Palestine, is more in need of your presence. So try and shorten your Umrah trips. Try and go there. You know, Palestine is very, very different to how things operate in the kingdom. It's not as regimental as it is in Saudi Arabia. Here it's possible for you to pray in the first saf. It's possible for you to actually meet and engage with the imam. Things are as original and untouched as possible, closer to how they were in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. There are no marble tiles like there are in the kingdom. You know, that entire land, the entire area, the stone is, and the soil is blessed. So let's try and inshallah make every opportunity. If you are able to and you are going on Umrah, you know, it's easily possible for you to divert there, spend a few days, show our solidarity with the Muslim brothers and sisters. Let us give in sadaqah and khairat and zakat and lillahi ta'ala for the upliftment and the assistance of those people. Whilst everyone is separated, those that live in Jerusalem are prevented from going to the West Bank or going into Gaza, and so are those from Gaza coming into the other areas. It's like us in South Africa here. Whilst we may reside in Cape Town, we may have family and friends and people that we know in Durban and Johannesburg. So, you know, it has a ripple effect. We support them, they support the others, and together we all assist Palestine.
Beautiful message. Jazakallah for that. Dr. Yusuf, now that you've encountered what our brothers and sisters are, a little bit of what they're going through on your trip, what does this trip mean to you? Has this impacted you differently since you've arrived back into South Africa?
Yes, definitely. Alhamdulillah, this was my second trip to Jerusalem and to Palestine. My first trip was in 2013 with my wife, my sister, and another good friend of mine, another medical doctor. And that trip had a great impact upon me for the very reasons that Qari Nadeem outlined earlier in terms of the sacred space and area of Jerusalem and Masjid al-Aqsa. But at the same time, also just to meet the people and to interact with them and to create that link between ourselves and the people of Palestine. On this trip, with the context of what is happening in Gaza and what is happening in the West Bank, I feel that going there, being able to observe on the ground the realities, the experiences, and being able to come back with a message and to disseminate and provide that message to others and to motivate South Africans to go, or Muslims around the world to go, and to show them that, look, alhamdulillah, if myself and Qari Nadeem were able to go and to get in without much risk, then it would be definitely possible for everyone else. So I think putting all of that together, we are very grateful for the fact that we were allowed to go and return safely, but to come back with a message. And without a doubt, just to be there and to tap into the spirituality and to be with the locals, I think that is an experience and a memory that I'll never forget. And just one more point that I want to mention before we end is that the local economy is suffering in Jerusalem as well, and you can imagine how bad it might be in the West Bank, and in Gaza nothing is happening. So by just going there and supporting the locals with whatever you can, definitely will uplift the people. And everyone, as Qari Nadeem mentioned, in Jerusalem has family members in the West Bank, has family members in Gaza, has family members in different other places of Palestine. So that money and economy will definitely uplift by supporting those that we can in Jerusalem.
Awesome. Jazakallah, Dr. Yusuf Patel and Qari Nadeem Dawood. Jazakallah for coming into studio, sharing your wonderful experiences, and may all your future efforts and projects grow from strength to strength, inshallah.
Ameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair.
And that's how we end Hilaal Live. We cross over to our Johannesburg studio for our Patel and the team take over until about 7:30 from the Cape Town team. Sohail Barnes on technical and myself, Luqman Shadrack. We wish you a wonderful evening. Assalamu alaikum.